Hello, everybody. I'm Armelle 6. I'm your host for Wake Up, Be Alive. Welcome to the show. And today I'm very happy to have a friend and a guest on my show, Michael Szyper, who is a spiritual teacher here in Belgium, in Quebec too. And I'm very happy to have him talk with me today and to also have you start to know him and what he shares and what he teaches. And I'm very happy that we can maybe bring more clarity to the path of awakening and to what are the different steps, and whether you are in the beginning of the path, in the middle, or anywhere on it. Maybe you can get more clarity by this talk. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Armelle. I'm very happy to be here, to spend this time with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I just introduced what we're going to talk today, and I wonder, can you just start by that? Like, what's the beginning of an awakening path for you? Like, and maybe we can talk about the different paths there are, and how would you say that you know that you're starting on that path? What's
the way I see it is that the beginning of the path, at least on this earth plane, is when we get born. So it's we are alive through this body, and from my perspective, everybody is on a journey of awakening, experiencing, learning, whether we call it spiritual or not. So that's the way I see it. So now, more on the inner path, I would say I don't think everyone starts exactly at the same point. We can start very identified with the body-mind, with having a lot of suffering, having to go through many ordeals, or we can start less identified with a more intuitive connection with the inner space and silence. So, and the way I see it is that gradual or direct path, they address the different need of the seeker. So gradual path, they give us tool how we can connect to the silence inside, how we can increase our ability of witnessing and welcoming and being present with what's inside, with life, with the other. And by doing so, it's like the center of gravity of the soul moves away from identification and learn to rest and abide more in silence. So the gradual path, they really teach us how to find this middle ground between suffering, the story running in our mind, and a place of silence. And so they are really a bridge leading towards true nature. So the more we live in silence, the more we become able to witness, to watch the mind, to welcome the emotion in our heart, to embrace our humanness. The more naturally we become grounded in a sense of inner presence and I would even say joy and aliveness. And that naturally, go ahead.
Yeah, so what you're explaining is actually everybody can do that in daily life, while you're working, while you're with your kids, or cooking, or doing anything in your house.
So certainly, so like whatever the gradual path we are on, it's always based either on the witnessing, watching the mind, becoming aware of what's going on in our mind, or on being present. That's more like there is more of a sense of feeling and embodiment. I'm going to be present with really what's going on inside. So it's it's a little bit more dynamic. And then there is the other part, which is acceptance, just accepting what is, being with what is, and because a large part of human suffering comes from the fact that the mind refuses what is, and what is already is. So if the glass is broken on the ground, it's already broken, so we can fight it, but it doesn't change the fact that it's already broken. So the moment is already as it is, and so we all have this capacity of welcoming it and not resisting to what's already there. And
can you about that say something, because what I see when I talk to people is that often it's misunderstood, and so people would say that being with what is means I have to accept everything. And there, for me, but I don't know how you see it, but for me there's another part. It's like it's happening, so anyway it's there. Even resisting it or wanting it to be different is not possible. But then there's another part. It's like that's what it is, so I open myself to it, but then I have a choice if I don't like it. Would you say that too?
Yeah,
or
certainly.
How would you?
Yeah, I would say the same. It's like acceptance just means recognizing that what is, and based on that recognition we can act. It also means welcoming what the inner reaction to what is. So and the more we are really in contact, in deeper contact with our inner reaction to what is, the more the action that we are going to take is going to be more in tune with who we really are. So acceptance, it's a great platform for the right action, right? Not in the sense of right and wrong, but an action that really comes from deeper within.
Yeah, I hear it's more authentic to who you are, actually, even though you might not really know who you are or something, but if you accept what's happening and you let yourself go there to whatever reaction is there, there's a contact that's happening with you, with yourself, and from there, then you know what to do in that situation. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Okay. It's a way of listening to our inner wisdom, and that's also what's interesting with being present, witnessing, or acceptance. Although they become easier and easier along the path, and they are even easier after we wake up to who we truly are. But it's still a practice, not in the sense that it requires an effort, but it requires honesty and a true intent of the heart. So that has to be practiced. There is always an opportunity to practice it, no matter where we are, because even after awakening, there in most cases, and I would say even in everyone, there's going to be a reaction, conditioning, part of our humanity that needs to be met in a deeper way. So there is always an opportunity to practice, and so I would say, those three practice: acceptance, being present, and witnessing. They are really the ground of every path. And not only they make our life easier, and although they require courage, because why we don't accept, or why we are not present, or why we don't want to see what's inside, is because sometimes it's difficult. There is suffering involved, or there are parts of ourselves that do not fit to who we think we should be. So that it's really it required the courage, from the heart to meet all those parts. And that's, in my point of view, is endless, and it's beautiful that it's that way. So it's not really about achieving like a perfect state. It's about this openness of the heart with this natural gentleness to welcome everything that's in, and then be authentic and walk in life, in a way that's coherent with who we are. So I would say,
yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for your explanation of it. And so that was for the gradual path, and then there's also another more direct path. Can you say a little bit about this one too, so that if someone is on the very beginning, they know a bit what's
the direct path. The beauty of the direct path is that they point towards true nature. They cut through the mind. They cut through the identification with the me. They really aim at the discovery of who we really are, beyond identification, here and now. So so that's really the beauty of the direct path, and it doesn't matter really where we are in our own journey. We can always benefit, I think, from the direct path, because it's a great reminder. Hey, we are consciousness. We are this pure presence. We are this bottomless ground is unborn source, you know. So it's a great reminder, because in our society, you know, the attention is so much focalized on the making money, contents of consciousness, trying to grasp, be happy by reaching something. So it's great to have this reminder that our true nature is already whole and complete and open, and there is so much happiness and peace and silence within it. So the direct paths, they remind us of that truth. So they really play a very important role, and also they can give us glimpse. Sometimes we hear a truth from the direct path, so it's not about how you are going to get it, or what to do with the mind, or how to accept or witness. It's just, look, you are that, so look at what is real, what doesn't change, you are not the me. So they have pointer to make us look, you know, directly.
So that's true, actually. Cut through any sense of being something else than the background of everything, the consciousness.
Exactly. So that's the beauty, but it's really work. I mean, sometimes being on a direct path, we can hear the truth or follow the pointer with our attention, and then we realize, and it's a permanent realization. So that can happen. It happens often, but also it happens only if the soul is, you know, in their own journey is ready for that. Otherwise, the direct path, they become gradual path, because we practice the pointer, we practice who am I and who am I, and so it becomes in fact a gradual path. It's practice in order to achieve awakening. With a more direct method, maybe, or no method, because at the high end, the upper part of the direct path, there is, that's what I call the no path. There is just no path, no awakening, no enlightenment, no effort, nothing to become.
Yeah, you already are what you are, and there's nothing to do.
Exactly, and if you try to do something, then you go on seeking, and then you prevent yourself from finding it, or realizing that you are that. So, and that's also very beautiful, but it really works for those who are just at the edge in their journey of the cliff, and just at the edge of the shift in consciousness. So they hear that, and for them it can be a revelation, because the idea of path, progression, effort can become an hindrance, can prevent the soul from letting go of the identification with the me and the mind through which the practice is done. So at that very point in the soul journey, it can be totally liberating. But if the direct path is heard more like a method, or there is nothing that you need to do, then it becomes a way of life, and that can be counterproductive, because in fact we can do a lot of things to be happy, to find the truth within, and to unravel, and to welcome and open up. So there are plenty of ways, and so when the direct path become a method and they become a restrictive view, then they miss their true purpose. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I would agree with you, because in the beginning, when I started to speak, I was talking about there's no one, there's no choice, there's no free will. You know, we are already what we are. There's nothing you can do. It's here, it's now. Just stop and see it's there. But then after a year of speaking like that, I started to realize that people were suffering quite a lot, and that this was not helping at all, actually, and that they could even use that in order to not meet suffering. Could you maybe speak a little bit about that?
No, I agree, and very often when someone wake up discovering, oh, I am no one, okay, but then there is this excitement, this joy, but it's so free, but I'm already free, I'm already self-liberated, but then there is this passion of wanting to share that, because it feels so liberating inside, but then it doesn't always take into account the soul journey of the people who are hearing it. But still, those kind of messages are very popular, because it's good for people to hear that, but then on a practical level it's not always very helpful, and it can be used by the defense mechanism to close up, you know, shut down the heart more, not meet suffering because I'm no one, or
Yeah, exactly. Who is
what,
suffering?
Who is suffering, or why are you complaining? You are no one. So everything is recuperated in a way that goes into more contraction and closing, instead of opening. So yeah.
So would you say to the people that are on this path in that point to be mindful actually about how they feel, and that it could be an indicator of whether this path is good, the right one for them, or that maybe depending on, I don't know, something that they could shift towards something else that would maybe respond more to their conditioning or where they are at on the journey? Or do you have anything about that?
What do you think?
I guess I would say that from what I've seen is I really saw how people could use the concept of being no one, of who is the one suffering, who is the one even listening to yourself, like who is there to listen actually. I had a lot of people asking this question when I started to shift the way I was teaching and talking more about actually listening inside and being true to yourself and who do you want to be true to. And so these things, I think that to me it's a sign in some way that someone deep down is actually not wanting to confront the suffering and probably wanting to go on this path, because when there's no one suffering. But it becomes a mental addiction, I would say, more than a real experience. And I guess it goes on, it's actually counterproductive, because I think that if you deny your own experience in a way that is not productive of what you want to reach, you're just not gonna get there. But that would be what I would say.
I really agree with that. Totally agree. It's like before the realization of consciousness, every teaching can be recuperated by defense mechanism and transformed into concept. So being no one can certainly be used as a way of not meeting what's really going on in the heart. And after awakening, realizing that we are consciousness, and consciousness in essence is not someone or something, it can be lived as a true experience. And but from my perspective, the realization of consciousness is not complete yet, because consciousness, the way I experience it, is not impersonal, it's not personal, it can become both. And the way I would say I experience it, I was shown, is that having this experience of being someone, of being a person, it's really like the flower on the tree. So it's really a gift. It's a very special experience of consciousness. So consciousness has created this whole universe, which is consciousness experiencing itself. But I don't see that the personal dimension of consciousness is something to get rid of, like an old pair of shoes. No, it's like a beauty. It's like waking up at consciousness, so we can live it in a personal way, not identify way, but personal way, with warmth, with heart, and so that the soul can really be here. Because if I say, oh, there is no one, it's like the soul is not really cognized. There seems to be just no one, and the soul is a very, very, very important aspect of consciousness. We are all soul individualization of the one. And so that's where we can meet. The way I see the beauty is like I can meet you, but not only as this body mind, as the woman who is there, not as the consciousness who is no one, but as the soul, so that we can really meet. It's the oneness meeting as two. It's really beautiful. So, but that's not possible if we just say, oh, there is just no one. So there is a part of consciousness that's not really integrated yet. So very often the looking at consciousness only in an impersonal way is used as a defense from the heart, or as a defense against the personal side of consciousness, or it's like the soul protecting itself, because the soul has suffered so much for so many years, being someone, being identified, being contracted, going through life, fighting, and then suddenly there is just emptiness, silence, oh, no one, there is nobody here. So the soul also needs to rest, but in that void, something can flower, and we can. So awakening is just the beginning of I will not say another journey, but another journey. There is a more flowering that can come out of it. So.
And can you clarify, maybe for people to have a benchmark, what is awakening exactly? What would you?
Okay, so awakening or enlightenment or liberation has a few components. One is the realization of true nature. The other one is the dissolution of the identification with the me, because prior to awakening, it's me who live my life. It's me who has this experience, how I experience that I was no one, or I experience the silence, the oneness, but it's always me. Every experience is experienced by me as a separate subject. And in awakening, when the center of gravity of the soul moves away from the me, that root identification is dissolved. So it's not that the me is not there, because the me, it's beautiful, it's an instrument, it's a vehicle for expressing our individuality. So we need a me, like we need hands and legs, and so the me is beautiful, but there is no identification to it. So when I say me, it's me, but there is no identification to it. And it's not me, it's me as consciousness, it's me as a soul, it's not me also as this body mind, but there is no identification to me. And before that, when people, for example, they practice who am I, who is practicing who am I? It's me. So prior to awakening, it's really difficult to break through, and the practice of who am I, or I used to practice it as what is me, is really a way of cutting through or dissolving that identification. So that is a second aspect, and the third aspect is liberation from the mind. And liberation from the mind means that thought are just experience. I thought as hologram, virtual reality, but the thought, I'm worthless, I'm great, I'm special. They are all thought, and thought are seen as just thought appearing, dancing within consciousness. So they are not taken so seriously. They don't define who we are. They don't make us suffer so as before, because they don't have an intrinsic reality. They are just thought form, holograms. So that's another very important aspect, I think, of awakening, of liberation. It doesn't mean that thoughts are not there, but they no longer have the power to make us believe into themselves, or they don't have the let's say the thought come, I lost it means consciousness. Well, that's just a thought. When after liberation, first of all, that thought would not come, but if it would, it's just a thought. So life is no longer seen as a problem. A problem is also a thought. So it's a great liberation. We don't need to fight the mind, because the mind just appears in consciousness, and just like the clouds in the sky. So that's really the freedom from the mind. Freedom from the mind to the point that there is no need for a freedom from the mind, because the mind is expressing the inherent freedom of consciousness. Any thought, even the darker thought, are direct expression of the freedom, self-liberated nature of consciousness. So that's the three aspects of really the liberation. If one of those is missing, then there's going to be back and forth, because the mind is going to have the power again to we are going to be identified with the mind again, or with the me. So those three aspects are very important. And regarding do you want to say something, or should I continue?
Please go.
So regarding the realization of true nature, then the way I see it, there is also like level of depth. So the first level is what I call the realization of the manifested essence of consciousness. So then we realize that we are beingness, the isness of life, the emptiness, the consciousness aware of itself, instead of consciousness being identified to this vehicle, to this body-mind. It becomes conscious of itself, of its vastness, limitedness, formlessness. It is totally non-dual, because there is no separation between the manifested essence of consciousness and this and that. So it's all non-dual, non-separated, and it's totally free. When we realize the manifested essence of consciousness, we enjoy the real freedom of consciousness. And then it can, the center of gravity of the soul can move deeper within consciousness into the unborn source of consciousness, prior to manifesting his essence, its essence. So Nisargadatta Maharaj spoke a lot about that, especially in his last two books. He said that, so there is the absolute, consciousness in the absolute, or prior to consciousness, and then here consciousness really means the manifested essence of consciousness, the essence within which everything appears and is manifested, and then we can move deeper within ourselves in the unborn source prior to any manifestation. And when we move into that, very often, not always, but I think very often it is experienced as a dark, as a black void, as a black hole, and even that experience is still how conscious awareness is experiences what is prior to itself. So it's even the void, or the black void, is a representation of what is really, what cannot be cognized, in fact. So the center of gravity of the soul can really move into source, and then that's really like the nothing. There is just nothing there. It's prior to existence, and the rest is deeper, because in the manifested essence of consciousness, that's where suffering is happening. But without consciousness aware of itself, there is just rest, very deep rest. And some soul, they just settle there and they enjoy that rest, and they share that rest, and it's really beautiful. And
but you wouldn't say that it's a permanent experience, though.
What do you mean?
That people don't stay as that void, like for some people do, yes, for sure. But the most common experience, that's not what people are to aim to. To not make it as a new benchmark that I really have to be like that now. That's
that's a good point. First of all, we don't need anything, because what we are experiencing is what we are experiencing. So even if we experience separation and frustration, and there is a journey, there is a lesson, there is a learning within it. So it's as valuable as experiencing the void. I mean, we are here. I don't see the point of being here to experience the void, because we are the void already. So, but here we can make a vast range of experience and learn a lot as souls, and we cannot do that if we just remain as souls. So now, yes, some souls they realize the source, and they rest there, and they spend a lifetime there, or many lifetimes there, and it's perfect, because every soul journey is unique, and there is nothing really more advanced. Someone who is passionate about gardening or football or whatever, that's the experience that the soul is making, and it's as valuable as experiencing the source. It's just the human mind that make a scale and levels. It's all experience of consciousness, and so we can spend some time in the source, and but I would say that's maybe not for most people. It's for people who have really that longing, and even in the source, there is this void that cannot be cognized, so it's prior to experience. But there is also like this amazing infinite potential of intelligence, of love that's bursting out of source. So, and we can also connect with that. And when people connect with that, suddenly they become alive. They become engaged with life. They want to change the way society is, and they want to make a difference because they connect with this love and this intelligence, and we are evolving. This earth plane is evolving, so we connect with this evolving force of consciousness. So it was static, nothing was happening, and now we are, everything is moving, and we are participating in this movement of universe that make it be as it is, and evolving and expanding. So there is that, and but the way I see it regarding the realization of consciousness, like the most important part is just to realize this innate freedom, innate silence and peace and oneness or non-duality, and then we can just realize consciousness, which is as much its source as its manifested essence, as this and you and me and the sky and the iPhone and then there is really no resting point. The soul is not resting in a specific dimension of consciousness, personal or impersonal, source or manifest. It is just free. Consciousness is free to experience itself through its own intelligence, and I think, from my perspective, I may be wrong also. Maybe it will change over the years. That every soul is experiencing, what it needs to experience. So that's the way. Liberation has those three aspects. So many traditions look at really the true liberation as the realization of the unbound source of consciousness. But I would say that's just
it's one part.
It's one part, because there is. If someone is grounded in the unbound soul, that creates a subtle energetic duality. So the person, the being is going to experience, all is one source and this world are one, but still if I'm resting somewhere, even in the unbound source, then that creates an energetic imbalance between source and the rest, because I'm resting in it. And that's not necessary. Papaji, Punjaji was a non-dual teacher, he's very famous, used to say, don't land anywhere. So so it's all open. So those are
When you say don't land anywhere, it's like don't take any viewpoint as something that you need to hold on to.
But even the realization of the source, of the unbound source, because otherwise it becomes something to hold on to, or a reference point, and we don't need any reference point because we are free, and everything we experience is consciousness.
And so would you even say that wherever you are or whatever you've experienced, there's always the possibility or the risk that you can identify it again? That you can re-identify and make another concept of where you are?
I don't know. There is always the risk. For me, the way I look at this, like reality is it is a mystery. So I don't know. So since I don't know, since it is a mystery, since I can be surprised every day, in every now, with that openness to the mystery, to the unknown, I think the risk of identifying, of making it rigid is less.
I hear you. Staying open to whatever is in the moment allows you actually to not go for another fixed perspective again. And therefore expressing as your true nature, unbound, free, being anything that is arising in this moment.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
But you see, we like the conversation we have. It's very specific,
Yeah.
but and almost even technical, I would say. But really, the most important for me, the most important thing is to live it from the heart, to have that humbleness, to live it from the heart, recognize my mistake, and just to be simple and just to live it from the heart. There is another aspect of awakening. So awakening can be very abrupt, seem abrupt, because we were identified and suddenly we wake up to, wow, I'm not at all what I thought I was. I am. So it can be very abrupt, can be very gradual, it doesn't matter. If we're on a gradual path and we practice acceptance and witnessing and presence, it can be very gradual, and even we may wake up without even noticing it.
Yeah, exactly. Not even having an awakening experience that would be something dramatic.
No, I mean, it's dramatic only if we were very much identified before. Otherwise, we may just not even notice it, because life is unfolding and it's simple and it's there. I lost my train of thought.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I cut you there. You were talking about on the gradual path, you can go unnoticed, that there is even a change that's happening.
Yeah.
And you were talking about living from the heart.
Yeah. So even if the point of enlightenment can seem gradual or progressive, from my perspective, it's always progressive, because if we look at it from a more vaster perspective, there is this soul journey experiencing through time and space. The soul who always remain timeless and one with God, or one with the source or consciousness, whatever one to call it. But after awakening, there is a continuous and ongoing integration, if we are willing to be open to it, and then there is an ongoing integration. For some people, abuse or traumatic event or deeper wound can come up only after awakening. Because now there is this spaciousness, there is this deeper sense of security, of safety inside. So now what was too difficult to feel can be felt. So it's not always like an ascending path. It can be up and down, but it's lived based on the freedom of true nature. And so it can be gradual. I mean, the integration is in general gradual, and it doesn't end, because we don't know how we are going to react to the next moment. And it's okay, and it's beautiful, and our clothes and our wife, husband, kids, parent, friend, they are there, to show us, to be the mirror if we need, and if we need them to be. And then there is also this integration in the heart. So I like to make a difference between the awakened heart and the awakened mind. So the awakened mind is very clear, everything is clear, I know what I am, there is no identification, but it's not necessarily lived from the heart center. And I found it very important to be lived from here. It's more kind, more spacious, there is more compassion.
And what would you say that if some people listening recognize themselves in being very clear in the mind, but not knowing how to relate to people, or still being in some conditioning that might be very abrupt or reactive or something, what would you say that there's something they could practice to bring it more to the heart and start to live from there, or just what you said at the beginning?
If they want to.
Yes, for sure.
If there is this
calling.
This calling. If not, this is just what they are experiencing, what they need to experience, or this is just their experience. But yeah, if they want, there is this possibility to meet and this kindness, profound kindness of true nature in the heart. You know, who doesn't want anything from someone, who is just open and welcoming.
Yeah, and therefore it would be maybe then also practicing acceptance or not witnessing, because they are very clear, but you talk about acceptance, and the other one was
being present.
Yeah, being present to whatever arises in the body.
Yeah.
To actually bring more consciousness to whatever suffering left over is still there, and that is asking to be met.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we did quite a tour. Just like this. Is there anything that you would like to add, or anything that you feel is important to speak? We can have maybe another chat another day for sure. Go into other topics that.
Right now, I mean, for the last probably for a very long time already, but right now my interest when I work with people is more to uncover and assist them in finding freedom in relation with the defense mechanism, the mechanism of separation that we call the guardian of separation in the work that I do with Della, my partner. So yeah, our work is more about embodiment, you know, because we are already what we are, but how can we live it in a relationship, in intimate relationship, you know, in our work, in our lives. So it's more about that, I would say.
Yeah, how to find freedom and love in relationships, and not trying to go into I am consciousness and there's nothing else.
And and maybe one more thing. I wish, I hope that that we are going to be able to witness in our lifetime more collective awakening, you know, of consciousness within everyone, not only a few, but many, the many. So everyone can know this gift, and that society can be different based on the heart. Right now, it's a society that's based on inequality, and we find it's okay, but it has not to be that way.
Yeah, we find it okay only because we are not connected to our true nature.
Yeah.
And inequality feels part of the separation mechanism. So from an more awakened society, then there would be more inequality or desire that there is no one excluded, there isn't high and low.
I hope we can go into that direction, you know, and that would be wonderful. But I'm not saying that I totally welcome the way reality is, but you know that, and that you said at the beginning, it's not because we accept what is that we have to be passive, you know. There is this love, this movement of evolution, and we are all part of it, you know. So hopefully we'll be able to live in a society that's more based on the heart.
Yeah, for sure, that would be beautiful. Well, at least right now that is based on the heart, and thank you so much, Michael, for being here and talking with me today.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure. Really.
Thank
you for listening.
Yeah, and also I want to say to the listeners that probably in a few months you will have a book that's going to come out also in English. That will talk about that, go into more depth about the things that we started to talk about today. And so
the book is finished, but someone, I have a friend with reading it right now, so it's going to take some time.
Beautiful. I think it's really important too, because there is living from the heart, but when we understand also with the mind, I feel it also helps people to let go or to settle deeper, because there is the intellectual understanding, and then there is the heart space that's available, and then we can maybe even allow ourselves to go more into that.
Yeah.
So I think it's I'm looking forward to read this book.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Armelle.
Thank you, all of you, also to listen, and I'll be there again next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.